up on EPFA News tonight. The co-creator of the Strike Force chair. Some helpful advice for the continuing difficult times. We hear from a Scottish female coach. We hear about a great relaunched support organisation. And we have a busy roundup for you. Welcome, this is EPFA News. There are many of our young and old athletes out there playing our sport today who may not know the history behind a Strike Force chair they are playing in. Over the next couple of broadcasts we have the pleasure in hearing from the person who had a vision to take power chair football to another level. Thank you to Tony Jackson for narrating. Let us now meet our visionary guest.
Hi, my name is Ed McGuire, and I typed this in October 2020. My power soccer adventure started in the early 90s. The first chair I started playing in was a Quickie P300. It was a good chair to play in since USA Power Soccer was more like rugby at the time, and the P300 was great for pushing. As power soccer evolved and became a little more tactical, I switched to my next chair, which was the Quickie S626. It had a much quicker response over the P300. However, it overheated in every game. Those were the days of subbing about every quarter so players could get their ice packs switched out, trying to keep the electronics cool. Chair electronics are designed to slow down when they heat up. The heat buildup occurs from constantly switching between forward and reverse. I gained much of my knowledge from Robert Book and others during that time. In October 2005, I was one of 8 athletes chosen to fly to Portugal to represent the USA. 8 countries met in Portugal to demonstrate and teach their version of power soccer. England proposed a new set of rules that more closely matched the able-bodied game. The way England played seemed too rough. Yet, they had to play that way due to the type of chair they were using at the time. The French style of play seemed like a game of keep-away combined with a form of hockey, which makes sense when playing with a small basketball. The USA game style was basically like USA football and just drive the ball up the middle. We used a huge ball, and the only thing we could really do with it was push it. Ultimately, the attending countries voted to take England's proposed rules and modify them into one set of worldwide power soccer laws. During that trip, my friendship with Jesse, Jerry Frick, Eric, and others blossomed. My parents had to return home a few days earlier. I was able to stay because I was surrounded and supported by wonderful individuals, including my longtime teacher and coach, Barb Peacock. This allowed me to feel a huge sense of freedom and independence. In July 2006, the first international tournament was played in Georgia with the new rules. The French team won every game. Not only have they been playing since the early 80s, all the French players played in an Invacare Storm FFH competition power wheelchair, which at the time seemed to be the best power wheelchair for power soccer. It was one of Invacare France's everyday power chairs that they modified into a soccer chair. After the tournament, my parents flew home, and I stayed an extra week to hang with Jerry Frick. The French team stayed an extra week. It was fun getting to know them off the court. I spent most of the time hanging out with Jerry, who became a huge rock in my life. This sport has given me amazing opportunities. Months later, I got wind that the Fernando Foundation was flying a group of players to France to buy a few FFH chairs, and I wanted one. I asked and was able to tag along with my family and personally purchase a FFH chair. I have always known that there was more to programming chairs than the little handheld programmers. Programming a power wheelchair is basically changing the setting that tells the chair how fast it can go. While in France, during the process of being fitted for our chair, the dealer that we were buying the chairs from also programmed the chairs for us. I finally saw what I had been unknowingly looking for: the PC programming software, the holy grail of wheelchair users. I asked, but they could not sell it to me. Returning home, I searched the net, emailed everyone, and somehow was able to get Invacare Germany to send a PC programmer to Invacare USA, who then sold it to me. I only lasted a season in the FFH chair. After a few months, I hated it for soccer. It is a great everyday chair, which is what it was originally designed for. However, on the court, it did not do what I wanted. I even designed different forks for the FFH chair as a project for one of my computer-aided design classes, and my teacher machined them for me, which did improve the turning response due to the tighter turning radius of the fork. My dad also built a rear guard to protect the back. Yet, it still felt wrong for soccer. So, I ordered a custom Quickie P200 so I could get the bigger T74 motors and the narrower seat I needed. By that time, the P200 was the prominent chair on the court in the USA. The first thing I did was buy a dynamic controller from a third-party USA dealer who was able to sell them at that time. This made a huge difference. I designed a custom guard for it. I had all the pieces made and my dad welded them all together. I also replaced the standard forks with my custom forks. However, once again, after a few months of playing in it, the chair just did not feel right. The balance of the chair was still not correct. I saw the solution when I was in Japan for the first Power Soccer World Cup as an alternate for the first Team USA. I noticed one of the Japanese players was in a P200 and had relocated the rear battery to the front, placing both batteries under his seat. After college, I moved to Georgia for 2 years, where I got to ride up the East Coast with Jerry Frick helping start new teams. I also learned from great players like Pika. I also spent hours emailing the motor and controller companies, asking questions and learning everything I could. I still have more to learn. Jerry's fabrication guy, Gary, welded me up a new battery frame that I crudely drew up. Relocating both batteries to the center of the chair in front of the motors, matching what I saw in Japan. We added anti-tip casters that were supposed to rotate up for off-court driving. Yet, there was a flaw in my design. I also moved the motors forward, placing them directly under my hips. Moving the batteries and motors was huge! Not only did it massively improve the weight distribution of the chair, not having a rear end sticking out made it much easier to spin kick. Before that, as I would enter a spin kick, the longer rear end would strike the ball first, most times resulting in a turnover. I also changed my guard to the French style. It was the opportunity at that time. Plus, it gave me the experience of playing with that type of guard on a different chair. In the summer of 2011, my dad drove me up to Minnesota to spend some added time with friends before Power Soccer Camp. At that time, I was designing adaptations for my bicycle. I needed to find a machine shop to see about machining parts for me. My friends knew a family that owned a machine shop. Turns out, they were making parts for Power Soccer. One thing led to another, and that June, I started interning at Power Soccer Shop, which turned into my first real job at the age of 31. I learned so much about manufacturing and aspects of how to run a business. I started helping redesign guard mounts for the many different chairs on the court. It was not long before we started talking about designing a chair specifically for Power Soccer. In November of 2011, I was given the freedom to design what I felt would be the ultimate soccer chair. So, I did. My P200 was awesome, yet still a little front-end heavy. Once I created the 3D model of the motor, I realized that if I rotated the motors 90 degrees, I could slide the batteries back, closer to the center of the drive tires, giving the chair a lighter front end. So I designed a prototype frame to hold the motors in position. Milt, Brian, and others added their knowledge. We experimented with different guard shapes. PSS was already set up with the RNet. Plus, years later, I was told by another chair tech that the plugs on the RNet can handle excessive heat better than Dynamics controllers. In early 2012, I tipped the chair in the first 2 tournaments of the year. Nobody wanted to invest in the chair. I was told to find a solution. I remembered what I saw in Japan. I pulled up a Japanese game video online to show Brian, got a thumbs up, and I designed the drive wheel guard tubes. As Milt and I were designing and fabricating, one of the tasks Brian took on was diving into the RNet manual and figuring out how to set up the parameters for maximum safe performance. I am very proud of what I and everyone contributed to what has become the best power soccer chair that most power soccer athletes play in today. All this said, the reality of the Strikeforce and the game that is played today would not be if the Acres had not invested. The Strikeforce chair was specifically designed for the sport of power wheelchair soccer. One of the main conditions is where the player is positioned in the chair. Seating position is one of the most critical pieces of the puzzle. The functionality mechanics of the chair were designed for a specific seating position. When players are physically able to sit properly in the chair, the player and the chair become a single, coherent unit in which dreams become reality. The beauty of the chair is that even for players that physically cannot sit properly in the chair still reacts instinctively to the player's intentions. The cost of sitting out of position is the player's body having to work harder to compensate from sitting out of alignment with the chair.
We will bring you Ed Maguire Part 2 in the next broadcast. In the last broadcast we said we would have some helpful advice in this one on surviving the difficulties of 2020 that look like continuing for another while at least. Let's find out more now from our guest.
Hi, my name's Erin Pryor and I'm a sports psychologist who's been working with the England power chair football team with the FA. I'm also working with the WFA and various clubs across England, especially during lockdown. I've been working with these teams to help them improve their mindset, specifically for power chair football performance, but also managing their mental health and well-being during lockdown and when considering returning to training. When thinking about the pandemic and the impact it's had on us, not only as people, but also as athletes, it's important to understand that we've all gone through many unexpected transitions. That includes going into lockdown, perhaps coming out of lockdown, and then maybe also going back into a second lockdown as well. This has led to a lot of uncertainty and feeling like we have a lack of control in the situation, which is really difficult to manage. And that's why many people have felt that their stress levels are increasing. They might be feeling more tired or more emotional because generally it's really difficult to deal with uncertainty and a lack of control in situations. The pandemic has also impacted many of our goals and our plans, whether that's within sport or outside of it as well. And so it's important to understand how we're feeling at this time because it's so unprecedented. And then once we understand how we're feeling, trying to think why we feel that way. And this helps us to manage our emotions and manage going through this difficult time. So today I'm just going to give you some quick ideas on how you can maintain your health and well-being. Firstly, I'd say check in with yourself and others. Really make time to do this and just take a moment to reflect on whether you're feeling okay or whether you need a bit of extra support. And also take the time to check in with your friends, your family, your teammates, even your coaches, to see how they're doing in the current situation. It's really important during this time to maintain that routine social contact with each other, even if it has to be online. And I know the power chair community in England specifically has been really good at this, especially doing online quizzes and keeping everybody's morale really high as much as possible. So really make sure that you're maintaining this social contact so you have some element of a social life, even if you can't meet face to face. And also seek support if you feel you need it. That could be from a friend, from a coach, your parent or carer, or maybe even a medical professional. Sometimes we can be reluctant to admit that we need some support and we need some extra help. But it's really important in this time that you do make sure that you get in contact with the right person if you do feel like you're struggling or you just need someone to talk to. In terms of dealing with uncertainty, this can be really difficult, and there's lots of aspects of the pandemic and not being able to train in the sport that you enjoy that is very uncertain and very difficult to deal with. So in sports psychology, we would suggest something called controlling the controllables. And by this, I mean really focusing on what you can influence and what you can control. When we're facing a stressful situation, whether that be lockdown or an important tournament or match, it can be easy to focus on things we can't control. For example, this might be focusing on our opponent's performance. But what we need to try and do in these times is really focus on what we can influence and what we can control. So, for example, this could be our own preparation. So during lockdown, during this difficult time, really try to focus on what you can influence and what you can control. And that may be staying in contact with friends and family, making sure you're making time to check in with yourself and with others, and making sure that you are reaching out for the help that you need. In terms of sport, I've been really trying to work with the power chair clubs in England to get them to focus on some key skills that they can really work on during this time when they're not able to train and practice. And for them, it's been a really useful time to work on their mindset and the mental side of the sport so they can go back to training feeling confident and feeling ready for the season. So, if you're unable to train, try and consider what other skills you could learn that can help you in your sport, or maybe some skills that you can learn outside of the sport as well. So the main message from today would be to keep in touch with your friends and family, seek support when needed, think of those things that you can influence and you can control, and try not to be too distracted by the many things that we can't control at the moment. And then think about how you can develop different skills in this difficult time. I hope everybody stays safe and that we can all return to power chair football very soon.
Some time ago we featured female athletes, which are so important for a sport. Here we feature a female coach and hopefully an inspiration for more females to think about getting involved with power chair football coaching.
Hi guys, it's Stefan here. I'm just making a wee quick video just to let you all know how I became a coach at Clyde Power Chair Football Club, why I enjoy coaching it and why I feel females should participate more within the sport. I actually get involved with coaching Clyde through college. I attend Cumbernauld College where I studied sports coaching development. It was here when one of my lecturers, Alan Moore, has set us up with a wee session with one of his colleagues. At the end of that session there was application forms going for Clyde. I took one away that night, filled it in, and within a week Craig got back to me and he invited me along to one of his sessions on Thursday, and ever since then I have been a coach at Clyde. I absolutely love coaching at Clyde. I've got such a passion for the sport. I've learnt so much as a coach. I've learnt a completely new sport that I wasn't familiar with, and I've learned so much in developing and adapting drills to suit the players. I wouldn't change it for the world, and I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to come along every session and learn more of the players, the coaches and the parents. And I also feel that females should participate more as well and become a coach. It's such a great opportunity, and you're learning a new sport and you're developing your skills as a sport and as a player. I would definitely recommend to get involved, and you won't regret it. If it's not for you, it's not for you, but definitely get involved. I just want to say, hope you're all keeping well during these difficult times and you're staying positive. Thank you.
It is always great to hear people from the power chair football community working in jobs that make a difference to others who play a sport. Let's meet a person who is doing just that.
Hi, I'm Kath. Most of you know me from Middlesbrough Power Chair Football Club, and before that Northern Thunder. I'm also the welfare officer for the WFA here in England. It's been a difficult year for everyone, and I hope that everyone is coping okay and keeping themselves busy. In England, we are still waiting for the return to power chair football. And with the news of a second national lockdown and the closure of leisure centres again, the return of any sporting activity just seems to be taking ages. Before the pandemic, I was working for Smile Through Sport, which is a charity that delivers inclusive sports programmes and events here in the northeast of England. As news of the virus spread, my work, as I knew it, stopped and I was furloughed. Although this meant that our lives completely changed, I used my time at home to do the jobs that my work and power chair football stopped me from doing. There were lots of jobs. I like to be kept busy, and it's important to me and my well-being that I work. I feel it gives me a purpose, so I applied for and was successful in getting a new job. So I got a job as engagement officer for DMD Pathfinders, a charity for people with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I've been really lucky as I joined at a really exciting time as the charity recently transitioned and opened itself up to the whole neuromuscular community. We are now Pathfinders Neuromuscular Alliance. It's a user-led charity that is by and for people with neuromuscular conditions. We had our relaunch last week. Pathfinders Neuromuscular Alliance promotes choice, control and quality of life for teenagers and adults living in the UK with neuromuscular conditions. We campaign, give advice, guidance and support on all sorts of issues including independent living, housing, employment, health and social care, rights, the list is endless. We provide a forum for adults with neuromuscular conditions, which is mostly on social media at the moment, for obvious reasons. My job as a COVID-19 funded post and part of my role is to ensure our members don't become isolated. I'm working with our individuals and partnership organisations, keeping up to date on service provision in these ever-changing times, as well as putting on online events, both social and information-based. We have an online catch-up and cuppa on a Monday and a quiz every Wednesday evening. I'm also encouraging our members to use their own skills to get involved, whether that be blogging, vlogging, writing a news article, inputting into health fact sheets, helping with the website or using graphic design skills, whatever you're interested in. Many of us have had to find other interests whilst powerchair football has been suspended. If you've got a neuromuscular condition and you'd like to get involved with Pathfinders Neuromuscular Alliance, either for support, friendship, or to offer your skills, or to gain experience, look us up on all social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we've got a new website, or you can get in touch with me. I'm going to go now. Thanks for having me. Take care. See you soon.
Our EPFA partners held their annual workshop online this year. There was reports of how the global pandemic had impacted on the environment, with a hugely reduced carbon footprint from the normal year of travel of teams, referees and officials. There was also a very interesting presentation on child safeguarding, and there is a toolkit available and a number of online courses that people can take and get a EPFA certificate of completion at the end. We would encourage all our members to check these courses out and benefit from the resources on the website. We were delighted and honoured to be asked to take part in the third episode of the Football for All talks on October 19th, hosted by Integrated Dreams and Jose Soros. EPFA President Donald Byrne took part in the discussions on the future of disabled football with three other representatives: Terry Ritchie, Inclusion Manager at Liverpool FC Foundation; Stuart Sharp, ENT Technical and Grassroots Director at US Soccer; and David Sturton, Blind Football Coordinator at International Blind Sports Association. It presented an opportunity to show a presentation of powerchair football, and in the discussions, there were some questions from as far away as India, Tanzania and Uganda about starting powerchair football. So possibly in the future, a new continent in Africa may start to develop powerchair football and join the global family. We congratulate the Spanish Powerchair Football Association (ACFA) for organizing some great online workshops for their members over the coming months. The first one is on November 5th, which will have a gender equality theme. This workshop will be followed by a number of others about raising awareness, communications tools to use for powerchair football, and emotions in powerchair football. We assure this will all be of great interest and benefit for those who participate. Just this week, EPFA communicated a document to the National Associations of Powerchair Football, called EPFA Planning for a Brighter Future. This outlined events, clinics and tournaments that EPFA would like to organize with potential hosts when it is safe to return, and also to start to discuss with interested hosts for events and tournaments in the longer-term future. The Danish Prime Minister has announced some further COVID-19 restrictions, which has unfortunately led to the suspension of the rest of the league dates for 2020, with the hope that things will be okay to resume again in early January. It was still great that Denmark got to have some competitive action, and we look forward to seeing everyone back on court as soon as possible. Following the announcement by President Macron, the French Foot Fatal issued an announcement with a number of scenarios for the future of a new 2020-2021 season. This includes starting the season in late January or February until July, starting the league in May 2021, or a combination even of starting the league in early 2021, and if competitions dates become cancelled, then switch to May season. More announcements will probably follow before a final decision is reached. A similar scenario in Austria, in England and across many of our other members, where fresh government lockdowns, curfews and added restrictions have impacted again on activity and planned return to play. Well done to the new FIPS Federation and their president for getting Italian power chair sport into the media spotlight. Keep it up. Finally, we share a great opportunity from our friends at the American Power Chair Football Confederation and the Brazilian Power Chair Football Association, an international classification introduction clinic run over 3 consecutive Saturdays.
Hello to everyone on EPFA's News. I'm Hannah from Brazil. I'm the classification director of the America Zone, and I'm here to invite you all to the first international introduction of classification clinic. It's going to be on 14, 21 and 28th of November at 1 p.m. Brazilian time. You can go to our Instagram, ABFC, the Brazilian Association of Power Chair Football, and at the bio is going to be the link, okay? I'm waiting for you guys. See you.
Remember, get in contact with EPFA News at the email below, and until next time, take care.